Hello, scholars. I am Dr. Twyla Williams, and I love research. And so, another topic or design that we will cover this week is phenomenology. Phenomenological. Those are a mouthful. Lots of researchers and students have trouble saying that word. So, have to practice it a bit to be able to say that. However, if you're going to use it, you do need to learn how to pronounce it. So today, we're going to talk about phenomenological design. And if you're a doctoral student and you are thinking about the landscape of research, of qualitative research, and you want to understand phenomenology, this will equip you with the skills to kind of explore the essence of human experiences in depth. We talked about essences last week. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more when we're talking about phenomenology. And so today we're going to break down again for phenomenology some key principles. We're going to talk about methods, best practices, or methods or processes. Let's put it that way. Best practices when we're conducting phenomenological research. So let's just talk about it. Again, phenomenology. This is a design that takes a little bit of time. It takes more time than most. Multiple iterative interviews. We're going to talk about that. So, phenomenology, even though the word sounds so dissertation like, we have to be mindful that, it is not for the faint at heart. And so, you need to really, really think about whether your study qualifies for phenomenology or not. And so, hopefully, today we can talk about that. So, phenomenology is a qualitative design that focuses on experiences of individuals and seeks to understand how they perceive and make sense of those experiences specifically. This type of design um, originates in the philosophical underpinnings of Edmund Husserl and also Maurice Merleau-Ponty. These are some researchers that help with actually developing this type of design. And they used phenomenology in the sense of to uncover the essence of a particular phenomena. Phenomenology, phenomena. And so phenomenon is very, very closely related and is at the heart of phenomenology. And they want to understand that phenomenology and how those who are experiencing it, what do they feel? Therefore, the expressions or the emphasis in phenomenology is how those individuals perceive the experience. It's not really about objective measurements or external implications that we find in some others. It's about what does that actual experience itself. We're going to talk about the experience itself. And this particular design allows researchers to dig deeper into the subjective meanings and emotions associated with various phenomena. I'll give you an example. In Louisiana, we had many, many phenomenological researchers come down after Hurricane Katrina. And if you think about it, the phenomena was the hurricane. These were people that were left on their roofs for weeks almost a week, stuck inside of attics for almost a week. And if you think about it, they shared an experience that absolutely no one else in the world experienced. They were there, they experienced post Katrina trauma. And so these phenomenologists came down and wanted to understand that experience and being a part of that phenomena and how they were able to relay and give meaning of that. And so that gives an idea of what a phenomena or phenomenological study could be. So there's some principles about phenomenology that we need to talk about. First of all, it's bracketing. We have to bracket, and it's foundational in phenomenology. Um, and it talks about us actually setting aside our preconceived notions, setting aside our biases, setting aside our judgments about a particular phenomenon. Remember, in some designs, we actually embrace that and we make it a part. We're transparent about it. But in phenomenology, you need to bracket that. That doesn't need to be a part of it because you didn't experience that phenomena. Remember, it's unique. And so you need to disconnect yourself from that and allow those participants to have that space. Um, It's by doing this, it allows us to also make sure that we have some fresh set of eyes and we're willing to be open to the participants' actual narratives and not to influence it with our own personal beliefs, because again, we did not experience this particular phenomenon. Another word that's closely tied to phenomenology is lived experience. Phenomenology, lived experience. Phenomenology, lived experience. Most times when you see the words lived experience, you're talking about a phenomenological study. Even though it can apply to other qualitative designs, that's most often associated. And so basically, this is what's prioritized in phenomenology, the lived experience. We want to seek to capture how these participants make meaning of that particular experience. What were the emotions that were tied to that? The focus, it goes beyond just the description, much more. It explores the essence of the experience itself, the experience itself. That's what it's about. Phenomenology is also very intentional and it has an intentionality to it. And that refers to the idea that we are always conscious and very understanding that that experience is always directed towards something. Okay, that means that when we study the experience, we acknowledge that the individuals always are perceiving, they're always interpreting, they're always interacting with the world. And so that's intentionality. That intentionality piece is very big when we're doing a phenomenological study. Another characteristic or key feature of phenomenology is the essences. Essences. And so the ultimate goal of a phenomenological research design is to uncover the essence of the story, the fundamental structures or qualities or experiences that are shared by those individual fundamental qualities, fundamental experiences that are shared by the individuals. And so that essence is a big piece. And so through a process of deep reflection, researchers work to bring this together and bring these essences together from diverse narratives that they collect in the phenomenology process. And so let's talk about that data collection piece in phenomenology. Well, first of all, that interview, we talk about that again. In-depth interview, number one data source in phenomenology. Again, these are very deep. They're a little bit longer, and sometimes you have to do more than one. Okay, and so here we're going to offer some really open dialogue. Want to make sure that they can do that. Allow them to share the experience, thoughts in their own words. And we do this usually with one big, broad research question, and then we go from there. And that question is very, very phenomena focused. Very phenomena focused. That's a big um, differentiating factor or key element of phenomenology. Again, just as we spoke about in narrative, focus groups aren't so much. Sometimes they can give another layer to the research, but they're not used as often in phenomenology. However, we do use those artifacts, interviews, collecting artifacts such as personal journals, letters, photographs, and this allows participants to be able to express their experience in multiple forms or to be able to extenuate the experience with actually having these artifacts. And so that can enhance your thematic analysis by having that piece in phenomenology. And of course, we're going to use that narrative inquiry because sometimes you can actually use it as a complementary method. And I say naturally, we're going to use that. Um, it would not be your primary, but it would be a complementary type of process to use to complement what you already have, and having those to write about their narrative, write about their experiences in detail, and then that might reveal some profound insights in addition to those interviews. Um, Always a good idea to think about that. Okay, so when we're talking about analysis, we talked about collection. Well, what about analysis in phenomenology? First of all, that transcription. Let's talk about the transcription. We begin to transcribe our interviews verbatim, and we want to preserve the participants' language, their emotions. We do not want to make we cannot detract from that. Very important that we are careful and pay attention to tone, to emphasis, and make sure that that is reflected because those things have significant meaning when we are doing the transcription. Thematic analysis in phenomenology, you use that, but with a particular focus. Remember, it's all about the phenomena here, okay? You read through those transcripts many times, and then you'll get those significant patterns and themes and codes and categories. Speaking of that, coding is another thing that we can talk about. We can develop a coding system to help with those emerging themes. We create those codes that present the essence. Remember the essence of the particular experience itself, feelings, perceptions, and we need to be open to revisiting and refining those codes and new insights. Remember, we talked about multiple interviews potentially and multiple sets of coding and understanding that data. And so we also can think about in collection, reflection, and synthesis. And so as researchers, we can engage in a reflective writing of the actual process and how we can synthesize those findings. Makes us return to the essence of the lived experiences that have been expressed to us. And we are able to formulate and help to formulate this narrative that captures what they're actually trying to say comprehensively. And so we have to be able to stand back and be able to do that as a researcher in phenomenology. So when we're presenting our findings in phenomenology, there's some things also that we can look at. First of all, descriptive narratives. We have to have very, very rich descriptive narratives in our findings for phenomenology. Very, very rich descriptions there. We want to paint this vivid picture of the participants' experience of this phenomena. We want to use quotes. We want to use the language they used. We want to honor the voice of those who are in the phenomenological study. We need to make sure to do that. We want to capture the essence of their experiences. That means we have to clearly articulate what they are telling us and what we've uncovered. And this involves connecting the individual stories to the broader context and demonstrating how these themes can contribute to deeper understanding and to a deeper understanding of that phenomena, which is related to phenomenology. Lastly, when we're talking about presenting our findings, we can talk about contextual findings, contextualizing those findings or contextual findings. Discuss how the findings to the existing literature can relate to theories. We can highlight the implications of our research for practice, for policy, for further study, as we do in other types of designs. But we need to make sure we do this with respect for diversity of the experiences that were shared by our participants. So in conclusion, the actual phenomenological design is a profound approach. It's rigorous, I will say, and oftentimes novice researchers have a difficult time with it. But if you want to explore and understand the depths of of a human experience of a particular phenomena, then this is a design that you can look at. You would focus on the lived experiences, which I've said before, bracketing your biases, identifying those essences, in-depth narrative analysis, and also thinking about the phenomena itself being an integral part of phenomenology. You can then contribute to some rich information in the field of your choice. So as you embark upon phenomenology, if you choose to do so, remember that there's an emotional and personal nature that will be a part of your work. You want to engage very deeply with your participants. You want to honor their narratives and let the essence of their experience in that phenomena shine through in your findings. That is your job. We need to really understand what it feels like to have gone through that experience. Again, I am Dr. Twyla Williams. Until next week.